Tonight we're in Romford in Essex, and welcome to Question Time. Watching or listening, welcome to our audience here and to our panel tonight. The government's chief whip, former Secretary of State for Education Michael Gove, Labour's shadow business secretary Chuka Umunna, the Liberal Democrat MP Norman Baker, who resigned from the government earlier this month, the columnist for the Daily Mail Amanda Platell, and the comedian and television presenter Joe Brand. Thanks very much, and as ever you can join in the controversies, the arguments, by text or Twitter, our hashtag BBCQT. You can follow us at BBC Question Time. You can text comments to 83981. You can use the red button to see what others are saying, and if you want to make a change, you can always send us a postcard to BBC Question Time Glasgow, something like that. Let's have our first question. It comes from Mo Sorinola, please.
Is David Cameron's no ifs, no buts promise to reduce immigration to tens of thousands now in tatters?
Is Cameron's no ifs, no buts promise to reduce immigration to tens of thousands now in tatters? Chuka Umunna.
Well, I think there's a big problem, is that he promised something that he couldn't deliver. And clearly the figures today show that he isn't able to deliver what he promised, which was to reduce inward migration to the tens of thousands. And in seeking to pursue something that he cannot achieve, it has distorted decision-making and meant, for example, that they have been doing great damage to our economy. But one obvious example, I'm the Shadow Business Secretary, higher education sits in my brief. They've lumped legitimate students, international students coming here, into their migration cap and given the image that, in terms of higher education, we're closed for business, which is bad for our economy. So making promises you can't deliver is not sensible, and it undermines trust in politics. But I just want to say something generally about this debate around immigration, because I think everybody wants a fair and firm immigration policy. I want one where we control who comes in and out, we count who comes in and out, we ensure that if you're going to take out of our benefit system, you contribute in first. We don't have undercutting in our labour market. But I think we also have to acknowledge that immigration, and when people seek to frame, for example, Eastern European immigrants as a source of all our problems, frankly, I think that is a complete and utter con. And I think we should have no truck with that kind of rhetoric, which we see in part coming from UKIP and some people in the parts of the Conservative Party, that seeks to set up different parts of our communities against each other. That is not in keeping with British values.
So are you happy with an increase, a level of 206, just over 250,000 net migrants into this country, or would you like it lower, or would you be happy to see it higher, because you say people are being refused entry who should be allowed?
Well, I think ultimately, if you look at, for example, our NHS wouldn't be able to be run without what immigrants bring to it. So immigrants actually help our economy. Now, to the extent that we've got immigrants coming into our economy to do jobs that our people here don't have the skills to do, of course we've got to provide people with the skills and training. We need more people taking up engineering, for example, to be able to do those roles.
But I'm just asking you about the figures that came out today. Are they, in your view, too high, too low, or about right?
At the end of the day, the reason we've got people coming in is because our economy needs it. Ultimately, we need to make sure people have got the skills and qualifications to do the roles that people are coming in to do. But, you know, I look at what immigrants have brought. Look, I'm the son of an immigrant. I look at what immigration has brought and how it has enriched our country culturally, in terms of our economy, and I think it's brought a lot to our country. But I think the tone of the debate around immigration is becoming very ugly, actually, in our country, and I don't think it's in keeping with our values of tolerance, respect, fair play. It's not really what we're about, and we've got to change it.
Mo, who asked this question, what do you think of Chuka's answer?
Oh, yes, I agree with Chuka, because the whole rhetoric around immigration is quite negative at the moment. And I do really believe that politicians shouldn't go for sensationalism, you know, when they make promises about certain issues that are very important to the people. So, yes, he did sort of overpromised, and he's now unable to deliver. Michael
Gove.
Well, these are big numbers. And the Home Secretary said earlier this week that we were unlikely to be able to meet this target. I think that's very clear after today. I think it's important to appreciate that there are different routes into Britain, and Chuka is right. There are many people who come to this country who have a great deal to contribute. People who are professionals who help to improve our National Health Service. People who come here who want to study and who want to learn, who want to contribute, and who ensure that there's a cross-fertilisation, intellectual growth in our country. But what's difficult, I think, to take for many people is the rate and the pace of immigration, because it brings particular pressures. It brings pressures on housing, it also brings pressures on schools, access to GPs and hospitals as well. So if we're going to get the benefits of migration, then we need to make sure that people feel that the numbers are controlled. And there's a particular problem here, because while we've been able to reduce the numbers of people coming from outside the EU, making sure that talented people who want to contribute can come, we haven't been able to control the numbers of people coming from within the EU. And Chuka said that people are coming here because our economy needs them. Actually, many people from the EU are coming here because there are no jobs in their countries, but jobs are being created here. In Britain, we've created more jobs in the last 4 years than in the whole of the rest of the European Union put together. And the reason that people are coming here is because of our economic success. Now, I think it's a good thing that our economy is growing, but I think if we're going to ensure that that growth is shared fairly, and there is not an unfair pressure on public services in some areas, then we need to control migration, and in particular, we need to change the rules within the European Union that at the moment have meant that too many people have come here and who haven't been contributing in the way that we would want.
But what you didn't mention... What Michael didn't mention was the almost 2 million Brits who are actually living in the EU and working in the EU. And look, the reason that we've got problems with our housing, problems with our NHS, is not because of immigration. It's because we haven't built enough houses over the last few decades. And frankly, well, we may or may not talk about the NHS later, but the NHS is under severe pressure because of a huge top-down reorganisation that was carried out on it.
Why, Michael Gove, why do you think David Cameron gave his promise that they'd reduce immigration to the levels of the 1990s, meaning tens of thousands a year instead of the hundreds of thousands, and then added, if we don't deliver our side of the bargain, vote us out in 5 years' time? Well, the 5 years is nearly up.
Nearly up it is. I think the reason why David set out that target is because the level of migration had dramatically increased in the first decade of this century. And we've had, in Britain, tremendously good community relations. We still do. But those good community relations depend upon people feeling that we can control our borders. And those countries which have succeeded in being multi-ethnic, multiracial success stories, like Australia or Canada, are countries where, yes, large numbers of people come in, but there's a sense that those countries have control of their borders. It's the fact that because of the nature of our membership of the European Union, we don't have control of our borders, that people question the capacity of our government to be able to manage migration in a way that means that we benefit from it, and at the same time that we maintain the good relations that make our society so rich in so many ways.
You, sir?
Well, 100% agree with Michael. With all of this, of course, I'm in business, and of course the country needs labour forces coming in. And one of the successes for Germany was as a result of the curtain coming down. But it's a matter of control. We can't flood this country with millions of people, and that 280,000 that we've just come out with, I've read in the paper today, that doesn't consider the babies that's been born as a result of this as well. 4 out of 5 babies, they said, I'm not against that, but the housing can't cope, nothing can cope. So we've got to say, hold fire a minute. We're not against foreign people. We don't want to chuck people out. Let's hold fire till we sort this mess out. Otherwise, everything's going to start collapsing, schools and everything.
Joe Brown.
Yeah, well, first of all, I think that David Cameron is frightened because he's leaking support from the Tories to UKIP, and he wants to be seen to be doing something about this nefarious area of immigration. As far as I'm aware, immigrants actually put more into the economy than they take out. I don't know whether that's right or wrong, but that's what I've read. But if you speak to some people, you just wouldn't believe that was the case. You would believe that they're coming here, they're sucking the country dry, they're sending it all back home to relatives, and some of them are committing crimes. And I think it's really down to immigration being concentrated in certain areas where people are uncomfortable about it, and it's also down to certain areas of the press encouraging scaremongering about what's going on. I'm also interested in how you decide what is a suitable level of immigration. Ask everyone in this room. They're all going to say something different, aren't they? Because people have different attitudes about immigrants. People know different things about them. People don't know how many people come into the country and work for the NHS. I think a lot of them come in, they work in rural areas like Herefordshire, where they're paid a pittance, which local workers wouldn't accept. They're housed really badly in appalling conditions which no one in this country would put up with. So I think you need to look at that side of the way that they're being treated as well.
Is it whipped up by the press, Amanda Platell?
It is. The press has been vilified for a long time for talking about issues like immigration. And actually it's been concerning millions of people in this country for a very long time. What makes my heart sink, and I haven't heard Norman speak yet, but when we hear the politicians, we've had both Nick Clegg and Ed Miliband and the representatives of your party, Chuka, and David Cameron saying that we're going to bring in, we're going to remove tax credits, we're going to do this, we're going to make it less attractive for people to come into this country. Under the current legislation, they cannot do any of that. You cannot treat someone living in Britain any differently from how you can treat them anywhere else in the world unless you negotiate, and there is no evidence whatsoever that these negotiations are going to work. And I would just like to say, I'm an immigrant. You know, I came here 30 years ago, but I never expected that this country would provide me with a meal ticket. I've worked really, really hard. It is a fantastic country, which I love, and I'm so proud to be part of, but I didn't come here expecting to be paid for things. I use the NHS. Apart from that, even when I've been unemployed, I haven't used it. Fortunately, because I didn't have kids, so I didn't need to. But if only more people just came here and thought, you know, it's about us giving to this fantastic country rather than us coming here and expecting for
But Amanda, I think that's what most people who've come here... My late father was exactly the same as you. He didn't come here expecting to be given a meal ticket. And what you were saying about controls at the moment... In terms of people coming here from Europe, you have to have been here for 3 months before you can claim benefits. So there is a degree of control around the way the benefits are working.
You're talking about 2 years, and now David Cameron's using 4 years. But you can't change that.
You can in terms of out-of-work benefits. In-work benefits is different.
All right, leave this moment. The woman at the back there, in the very back row, and then I come to you. Yes.
Yeah, I totally agree with your points, because you can't go around penalising all immigrants because they're coming to change their lives, and some, like you said, they work hard to get where they are today, like yourself.
They work incredibly hard and contribute a huge amount.
Okay. And do you want to come in, woman here?
I just wanted to pick up on what he said earlier about the whole idea that we don't have the skills ourselves. Well, perhaps we don't have the skills ourselves because the younger people, like myself, don't have the opportunity to gain those skills throughout doing qualifications because of this 16-hour rule that you've got. You can only do 16 hours while you're on benefits.
And we want to change that, by the way.
Yeah, and we know that it's terrible. It is terrible.
Absolutely right.
Because the decisions that you make when you're 15, 16 are not the decisions that you're going to want to make when you're 19 or 20.
That's right.
And I do actually, I know it's really sad to say, I do regret the decisions that I made when I was at school. In fact, I'd prefer to do veterinary nursing, but when I came out of school, I thought, well, the safest option that fits my grades would be to do hairdressing. And, you know, we don't have those skills in the British people that live here already. because we're not giving them a better opportunity.
Norman Baker.
Well, that's one of the reasons why we've been very keen to promote apprenticeships in government, and we've got 1.8 million more apprenticeships than we had in 2010, which is one of the ways of dealing with that very real problem. But coming back to Mo's question, which I think was no ifs, no buts, I mean, I think the Prime Minister was rather unwise to make a commitment to something which he couldn't deliver, and he couldn't deliver it because there's no controls at the moment legally on EU migration. It's like making a commitment to the number of days it's going to rain next year. You simply can't make it work. So what's happened is the system's been skewed because EU migration has been off the agenda, as it were. There's been attempts to screw down non-EU migration, which has actually damaged our higher education system and damaged our business interests in some way, and that's not been good for this country. So we need to look at it a different way. I want to make one point about our own people who've left the UK and gone elsewhere, however, because there is a balance. Yes, we've had net migration this month, and there's been an overall trend, but it's worth remembering there are about 1.5 million UK residents who are elsewhere in the European Union benefiting from what they have to offer, including, for example, a lot of our pensioners in Spain who are benefiting from the Spanish health service. So it's not a one-way street.
OK, you, sir, in the front row.
I just wrote to the Prime Minister about this very subject. I'm unemployed at the moment. I live at local Romford. I went for a job and the foreman come down and said, "Excuse me, I don't understand English." So I don't tend to agree with your colleague there on the side. There are people with skills. I have them skills. And when the Prime Minister wrote back to me, he was basically saying that I was racialist. And if you go to someone where they can't understand English and you just can't get along with them. I feel that they're just giving people jobs from Europe. They're totally ignoring the people locally. And I pointed out that you can, regarding the colour or religion, local people here could do that job.
So let me say something. I don't think it is racist at all to talk about immigration. Some people say that we don't talk about it enough. I think we talk a lot about immigration. But I think in terms of the businesses that I speak to, in particular people with the technical and vocational skills, and we were talking about apprenticeships, that is something that the business community says is lacking. And so we've absolutely got to make sure that there are more people with those skills. But in terms of language, I mean, look, absolutely, I think if you're coming to our country, it's important that we help people integrate. And that's one of the reasons why we've said we shouldn't be spending money translating documents for people. We should spend money, if we're going to do something like that, in helping them learn the language.
But you didn't get the job, or you walked away from it?
No, I didn't get the job. I reported it to the local council. I've got the letter here from the Prime Minister, if you wish to read it. And actually, one of the guys from Europe, I had to take him home because he was lost around Victoria. So I wrote to the Prime Minister explaining where I was right on your doorstep.
OK.
This is going on.
The man behind you there, and then I come to you. Yes.
I just want to take issue with Mr Baker's point and some of the general points from the panel about being in Europe means that we all have to do the same things. We don't. I was one of those 1.5 million that last year took a year out, moved to Cyprus. You can't claim unemployment benefit there unless you pay in. Your employer has to take money out of your wages and you pay in actively to the months that you're not working. There's a different charge for healthcare, there are different taxes, there are different prices in restaurants for the tourists as there are for the locals. So, you know, there is really only one choice, which is, because of the 5 pillars of the EU, you either stay in the EU and accept it, all good or ill, or come out of it.
OK. And the woman up there.
Chuka, bringing up on the point that you made about integration, I think that's one of the issues that we find most frustrating. From a local point of view, lots of people have moved in, particularly from the East End of London, from a Bangladeshi or a Pakistani background, and they don't integrate with us locally. We don't have any commonality with these people, that we are not able to talk to people because they don't want to talk or integrate with us. That's a big frustration for us, and I think it's a key part of us all getting on and being an inclusive society. We're not able to do that because we can't make friends, we can't become...
But don't you think...
No, let Michael Gove answer this one.
So I just don't think that we have the community spirit that we used to have in this local area.
OK. Michael Gove.
Well, I think Chuka made a very valuable point earlier. I think it's very important that we encourage people to speak English, that we don't waste public money translating documents into a Tower of Babel list of languages, that we concentrate on making sure that people, whatever background they come from, integrate. And that means also having respect for British values as well. tolerance, fair play, a belief in the rule of law. Societies that are made up of people from lots of different backgrounds benefit from diversity, different ideas and different cultures, but they also only benefit from that diversity if there's an agreement on the core democratic values that hold the United Kingdom together.
OK. I'm going to move on because we've had 20 minutes. You didn't want to answer his point, because I think he made the point, you made the point.
I was going to pick up on the language point, actually.
Yes, I think we'll move on, because we've done 20 minutes on that. And we've got a number of questions I'd like to get through. Pervez Khan, please, with a question.
Does the threat by Labour to remove the tax breaks given to private schools signal the start of a new class war?
Labour's threat to remove tax breaks to private schools, does it signal a new class war? Amanda Platell.
It's an old class war, and I just think it...
old class war?
It's an old class war, and it's a typical thing that Labour falls back on whenever they get into a bit of trouble, like they did with their white van posting last weekend. I found it astonishing that it would come out at such a point. I mean, you know, driving here tonight, lots of white vans where I grew up. The problem is that in that moment, Labour, Ed Miliband was trying to take attention away from a ghastly thing that had been done by someone very close to him in the shadow cabinet, and his way of deflecting attention was to start the class war again. And the problem with most of the metropolitan elite that rules the country in all the parties is that the only white van they ever see is the Ocado truck delivering their Waitrose shopping at the weekend.
So, are you saying Tristram Hunt's intervention about Labour's policy on schools was entirely motivated by Emily Thornberry's tweet about the white van?
Yes, I am. You told us to be brief? Yes, I am.
All right. Do you agree, Michael Gove, that that was what motivated it?
I don't know. I've no idea what...
Is there a class war being proposed by Labour because of what they're saying about schools?
Well, I don't know what Tristram's motivation was. I don't know whether or not he was put up to it by Ed Miliband or he spoke from the heart. You know, the one thing about Tristram, I found I used to be opposite him in the House of Commons, is that he's a pretty plain dealer. So I'm not sure. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. And I think he deserves the benefit of the doubt, because even though there are aspects of this idea that I don't like, I think he's onto something very powerful and very important, which is that we have one of the most stratified and segregated education systems in the developed world. It's not just about the 7% who happen to go to independent schools, some of whose parents are making tremendous sacrifices to send them there. It's about the fact that where you're born, in many cases, determines your future in this country. If you're fortunate enough to live near a good school, independent, grammar or comprehensive, then you have the chance to go to a great university or to take on a fantastic apprenticeship. If you are unfortunate enough to be living in the catchment area of a weak school with a weak head, you're steered towards the wrong subjects, your life chances are blighted, and your chances of success later on in your career are foreshortened as well. And I think that Tristram is right to say that we need to encourage independent schools to use some of the advantages that they have in order to support state schools, and we're doing that through the academy system at the moment. And I think he's also right to say, as well, that comprehensives need to develop some of the ethos that the very best schools, whether they're independent or state, have. More competitive sports, more drama, more dance, more music, more character-building activity, as well as a sense of ambition that means that children from Liverpool or Glasgow aspire to go into the top jobs and the top universities just as much as those children who go to Eton and Harrow.
You say that. You were Secretary of State for Education. Now, Tristram Hunt's old headmaster said that this was offensive bigotry that Tristram Hunt was putting forward. Are you saying that Tory policy is to remove charitable status from private schools if they don't do the things that Tristram Hunt has described? Because it's easy to say there's a divide, there's a Berlin Wall. You both use the same expression.
Yes, there is.
But do you want to see that degree of coercion or pressure that Labour is suggesting?
No, this is where I differ. I do think that Tristram is wielding the big stick when he should be attempting to woo and to persuade independent schools to do more. It is already the case, I think, that independent schools are doing significantly more. Tomorrow, Eton is opening a new state school, a state boarding school aimed at the very poorest children. It's already the case that just down the road in the East End, that Eton and Brighton College, two independent schools, are sponsoring the London Academy of Excellence, a state school in Newham that has got more children from Newham into top universities, this one school, than the entire rest of all the schools in the borough of Newham for years.
When you say sponsoring, you mean they're paying for the whole thing?
Well, they are alongside the government, but they are lending teachers, they are lending support, they are making sure that that school succeeds. So, you know, you can... There are all sorts of technical points where I disagree with Tristram, and I think it is wrong to use threats when you should be attempting to persuade. But I think it is a good thing that we are having a debate. We need to have a debate in our country about how to make it fairer and more meritocratic.
So it doesn't sound as if you think it was a knee-jerk reaction to White Van Man.
As I say, I do not know, and I cannot tell what the motivation was. All I can say is I think it is a good thing in this country if we start asking tough questions about how we can make this country fairer.
I don't think persuade them nicely, threaten them, that's what I say. Private schools are... they have charitable status on the understanding that they put something into the community. 2/3 of private schools don't even share their facilities with other local schools. And I think that that is outrageous. And I think they should be in danger of losing their charitable status. Look at the Tory front bench. The vast majority of them went to private schools. If you go to a private school, you're 55 times more likely to get into Oxbridge. The advantages are staring us all in the face. And to say that private schools are doing their utmost to put themselves into the community and help kids out in the community from state schools is an absolute travesty and a lie, and a lot of them aren't doing it.
The woman in the third row from the back there, you, yes.
First thing that I want to clear up is this myth that there isn't an ethos of ambition within the state sector. I am a qualified teacher. I'm no longer in teaching because of the environment that you find yourself in. And that myth that keeps being perpetuated all the time is so damaging to the morale of teachers within the state sector. And the other thing that is really important to clear up is that it's the resources in private school that needs to be shared, but the quality of teaching is far, far superior in the state sector. Like, when you go through qualified teaching, the one thing they say to you is if you want to start in the state sector, you can easily move over to the private sector. You can't go the other way around. People don't start in the private sector and move over to state, because the reality is the skill set you develop within state education is incredible. The best people I know are teachers. And to keep talking about teachers as though they don't have ambition in the state sector.
I totally agree with you, and I think that is the most insulting... The thing I found most worrying about the man who wants to be the next Secretary of State for Education is that what he talks about is lending good teachers from private schools to these failing state schools, whereas he should be talking up the state system, many of whom are doing fantastically well and achieving really well, instead of knocking them. Which seemed to be his subtext.
You sit in the third row on the gangway there. Yes.
I have the privilege of being a vice principal in the Ebbsfleet Academy, and Michael, I would like to invite you to visit at your earliest possible convenience. And what I would say is there is a real need for closer work with universities. I think that the suggestion that the private schools are better than the state schools or vice versa, I think we're kind of missing the point. There are universities there, there are centres of academic excellence, and they should be supporting state schools. They should be mentoring students.
But what do you think of the idea that Tristram Hunt put forward of private schools supporting state schools? Is that a good idea, or is it, as the teacher up there was suggesting, pretty...
I think it makes sense, and I think that...
I think it does make sense.
I think it does make sense.
So that they need the support of the private sector?
I think that private schools have expertise, which they can share with state schools. They have resources, which they can share with state schools.
What kind of expertise do they have that you don't get? Well, I'll ask the lady up there, as a teacher, what kind of expertise does the private sector have that your experience in the state sector suggests they don't have?
They have more time to develop their knowledge of the subject, because they're not spending all their time on probably paperwork and trying their best. I mean, I used to teach over 300 students a week. In that time, you don't have the time to develop your subject knowledge the way you want to, whereas the environment you have in the private school, because you have maybe generally less students in your class, means you have that time to actually really think about getting your subject over properly.
Okay, all right. You want to come back on that, and then come to you?
Yes, just in terms of some of the benefits that the private schools could bring. I think one thing that private schools are particularly good at is character development. And I think it's maybe one area that's been neglected in the state sector, the idea of character education. So that's probably one area where I think that private schools and indeed universities could really support the state sector in helping to build character amongst all of our children.
And you don't think it's class war on Labour's part?
No.
Norman Baker.
I do think independent schools ought to contribute more towards their community, and I think that's just good neighbourliness apart from anything else. And I also think it would justify their charitable status rather better if it did so. But I think to start at that is to start at the wrong end of the telescope, because what I'm interested in doing is making sure that the state sector is really good, as many of our schools are, but not all of them, and to make sure we've got sufficient resources so there's a decent school that every parent wants to send their children to in every area, rather than having to search around for the school which they think might be appropriate. And all the evidence is that the first 4 or 5 years of life are terribly important in shaping how well a child will do, not just in school, but for the rest of their life. And that's why it's been right, I think, and my Lib Dem colleagues have prioritised, for example, the issue of free childcare for 3- and 4-year-olds, and indeed for the most disadvantaged 2-year-olds. Also, the issue of free school meals, getting a decent meal inside a child at lunchtime is a really good idea. And also the pupil premium, to spend extra money to those schools which are disadvantaged and to make sure we bring those children up to try and equalise. I'm in favour of equal opportunity for all children, and it's quite wrong, I think, that we end up with a situation in life where a disproportionate number of people in important jobs have been to private school and not to state school. So let's get the state system, and let's make sure that's properly resourced and get that up to standard.
Joe, I'll come to you in a moment. Chuka, Umunna.
Well, look, just listening to the debate here, I think there's a lot of consensus that this isn't to do with white vans or flags or anything like that. What this is about is ensuring, and Joe made the point, private schools, independent schools enjoy certain benefits and privileges. One of those is business rate relief. Charitable status has been mentioned, and this is just about ensuring that they put something back into the communities into which they exist. Now, in fairness, there are lots of independent schools who are already doing that. So what we're seeking to do is to ensure that that excellent practice is something that is mirrored across the whole of the independent sector. And also, it helps break down, I mean, you talked about the divisions. It helps break down some of those barriers, integrate the independent sector more into and with the state sector so that the resources can be shared. I mean, ultimately, I don't know, I think, in addition to you, I'm the only person on this panel who went to an independent private school myself, and it wasn't a decision that my parents made lightly. They didn't want to take me out of the state sector.
How dare you assume I didn't go to a private school?
Sorry, I haven't
Penrose Methodist Ladies College.
Well, three of us. I haven't kind of looked at everybody's biographies on the panel, but the point I was making is that I'm not, you know, I certainly wouldn't criticise or condemn anybody who seeks to send their child into the private sector. They just want the best for their children. Ultimately, what we want, I'd like, is to make independent schools, private schools, redundant, because everybody wants to send their kids to the state sector.
Yes.
Well, I don't care for the private or state school. My question is, why is the school failing our children? And if so, why is there so many private tutorial sort of schools all over the place?
Joe Brand.
Sorry, what was the question? Why are there so many...
Schools failing our children.
Right.
And why is there so many private tutorials?
One point that I want to make...
tutorials. Are there a lot of those?
That's right,
here?
private tutors, yeah. Well, one thing that I have to say I think is really important, which very rarely gets mentioned as far as education is concerned, is the input of parents into encouraging their child's education, because as far as I'm concerned, you can actually send a child to a state school or a private school, but if the parents aren't interested in their kids' education and they don't support it, that child can do really badly in either school. I see a lot of parents hand their kids over to a private school hoping they're going to do the lot for them and the parents don't have to have any input.
Okay.
And I think that's really important.
I'll take a very brief... Very brief.
Just very briefly, it's important to accentuate the positive. Schools are improving. There are more schools that are good and outstanding than ever before. It's also the case that the young generation of teachers who are now entering the classroom are better qualified than ever before. Figures out today show that 3/4 of teachers have got a 2-1 or better, and 1 in 8 teachers got a first-class degree. So we've transformed the teaching profession over the last few years. It now has the prestige it deserves, the noblest calling that anyone can follow.
Why did you seem to lose the support of teachers when you were doing the job, if all those things are true?
Well, I don't know. One day... We're always taught not to accept the premise of the question. That was a sort of, when did you stop beating your wife question? Why are you so widely loathed, Michael? I might as well, you know, I could ask myself many questions about the events of the last 4 years, but instead all I will say is that we're fortunate now in having in Nicky Morgan a superb Education Secretary who's doing a fantastic job.
A question from Joanne Randall, please.
I'm a single parent working full-time, struggling to pay my bills and put food on the table. Is it fair there are unemployed people with more money in their pockets than I have?
Joanne Randall, Michael Gove, what do you say to her? Works full-time, struggles to pay bills, unemployed people have more money in their pockets than she does.
No, I don't think it's fair. I think that the whole way in which our welfare state and our benefit system has changed under Ian Dinkins-Smith has been designed specifically to address the concerns of people like you and the overwhelming majority of people in this country who work enormously hard, who want to be able to provide for their families, but who do see that the benefit system in certain circumstances is skewed, and that there were people, I should say, who were capable of earning more than the average salary by remaining on benefits. There will always be certain occasions in life when people need the support of the welfare state. There will always be moments that we want to cushion when people go through periods of illness or unemployment, and there will always be blows that can damage individuals and their families that we all want to insulate them from. But the single most important thing that we need to do is to make sure that we reward those who do the right thing, that work pays, and that people in your position don't feel that you are being penalised for doing the right thing by your family.
Why do you go on working, as you say, struggling to bring up a family, if you could earn more money by not working?
Well, I took a job that was better pay, but then they took £150 tax credit away from me. So, in effect, by the time I paid petrol, I'm no better off at all. I mean, my elder daughter wasn't working at the time, so she couldn't contribute towards the household income. She wasn't entitled to job seekers allowance because she worked 8 hours a week at Dunelm, and they said she earned too much. So, you know, you're in a hole, basically. You can't get off the ladder.
Is this the sort of, as a constituency MP case you come across often?
I'm afraid it is, and I think that one of the worst aspects is when people are unemployed, they want to work, they want to get back into work, and actually they can't afford to do so because to make a calculation they'll be worse off, and that cannot be right, which is why I think the move towards universal credit is actually a sensible move.
Absolutely.
Which tries to eliminate this and tries to make sure you're always better off in work. But the other thing you can do, and we've been, as Lib Dems, very keen to do it, is to make sure that people can take home more of their pay, particularly those on lower incomes. So we've raised the income tax threshold to now £10,500, so people on that level are £800-odd better off, and those on minimum wage are actually paying 2/3 less tax than they were in 2010. So we want to incentivise work and de-incentivise welfare, but at the same time, you've got to have a safety net there for those who've got no alternative. They've got particular situations where they can't find work or they've got disabilities and so on. And it's very important to have a compassionate approach to those people, and getting that balance right is quite difficult. But it certainly should be the case that if someone is unemployed and they want to work, they should be better off.
It made no difference to me at all, the tax thing. Really.
Say that again, sorry?
It made absolutely no difference to me.
No, well, the system...
Really.
From your point of view, is it getting any fairer or not, or do you still feel aggrieved?
Fairer, no. I mean, I've actually been told by the Jobs Centre that I would be better off not working. But
really?
I can't get off... if I give up my job, I don't get any benefit for so many months.
They suggested to you should give up working.
Because by the time I've paid all my bills, there's nothing left. I've got nothing.
Amanda Platell.
Look, the system is changing. I'm no sap to either of the parties, but I can see that on both sides that there is a mood now to try and make work pay for people, and your situation is, you know, just makes you so angry that you are living side by side with people who don't want to work, and yet you want to raise... Did you say you had 2 daughters?
Yeah, that's well.
Yeah, and all I can say to you is that the best thing that you're doing in working is you're giving your daughters the most fantastic example as a mother in life. So however difficult it is for you, that you know, it is a wonderful thing you're doing.
One of the hardest things was, though, that when my younger daughter was at senior school, we weren't entitled to free school meals because I had that taken away because I get working tax credit. But everybody I know who works 16 hours or more gets working tax credit.
These
So
are the men you should be speaking to, because they can sort it out.
Are the unemployed people. So
Okay.
they're the only
But I
ones that
think
get the
there
free
is a
school
will
meals.
to sort it out. I really do think in all parties there is a will to sort it out.
Let me hear from one or two other members of the audience. The man up there, yes, on the right.
The voice of discontent comes not from people who on the benefits or on the immigration side of things, not from people in the last, say, 20, 30 years. We're going back 4 or 5 generations where people's relatives fought and died in the war for a principle for this country to move forward, setting up the NHS, all things like that. We believe in a way of how to work, how to do things, how to go about our business. And what a lot of those people are thinking now is what's happening to this system. Things are falling apart. The lady is saying she can't get certain benefits, she can't get certain things which are there to help her, but others who just turn up can get things. That's what makes people very, very unhappy. So you're looking back at a quite historical thing here, whereby people are seeing things that they think that should be working, and then at the moment things seem to be falling apart.
Chuka, Umunna, do you agree with that?
Well, I think the experience which was described by the questioner illustrates that there is obviously something wrong with the system. And let me not fudge your question to answer it directly. You asked whether it was fair that people on benefit should be earning more than you, and clearly that isn't fair. The question is...
Well, they're not earning more, but they've got more in their pocket.
Sorry, yeah, getting more in their pocket. And clearly the challenge to us is, what are you actually going to do about it? Now, we have got a problem with our labour market. Despite the fact that the economy is growing again, I think people feel a little bit more confident. It's still really tough because ultimately we don't have enough jobs that pay a wage that you can live off. I think it is an outrage that in 2014 the majority of people living in poverty in our country are people in work.
Exactly.
That is absolutely outrageous. And that's why I think we've got to increase the level of the minimum wage, have a more ambitious target for it. But ultimately, we've actually got to get more employers paying a living wage, and you can incentivise them to do that by giving them tax breaks to do that. I don't know how old you said your second daughter was.
She's 17 now.
OK, so people with younger children, certainly we need to help them with childcare. But ultimately, what we've got to do is transform our economy so we've got more sectors that deliver better paying jobs in the first instance. And that's why you need industrial policy to grow the sectors which produce good-paying jobs. The creative industries are great at that. Engineering. That's why we've got to transform things. And I think we can do it, but we've got to take the decisions to make it happen so your life can get better.
You, sir.
I am 17, and very soon I will be going out to work and I will be earning myself a living. But at the moment, where is that incentive for me to go out and get a job when I know in a couple of years' time I could be better off living on benefits?
Because there's dignity in work.
Yeah, as myself, I have an aspiration to go out. I want to go to university. I want to get a job. But I know in my school there are people who will not be able to do that, and they will, instead of aspiring to get a job, they will just live off of the benefit system.
Well, I think Joe Brown. Sorry.
Well, I sympathise with you. I mean, I think it is the case that there are some families who unemployment goes back for generations, and they've just learnt a certain way of life that it's very hard to get out of. As far as you're concerned, madam, I mean, I think single mothers were vilified for years as women, portrayed in the tabloid press who just got themselves into that situation, just wanted to live off the state. And so it's fantastic for people to see single mothers that actually want to work and want to set an example. Now, obviously, when you're deciding about benefits, you have to use broad brushstrokes, and there are people that are going to fall outside the system, and they're going to end up in this ridiculous position of earning less. I have to say that I don't think this particular government is helping with the introduction of things like 0 hours contracts, and people's wages are gradually going to drop. In your position as well, that may happen too. So I hate to hear myself saying this, agree with Amanda to the extent that I think there's something about working that makes you feel better about yourself. And hard as it may be, I think you need to wait for things to change and keep going and work. And there will be some rewards from that to you personally.
Why do you hate agreeing with Amanda?
Because the Daily Mail has ruined my life. That's why. It doesn't really. It's not really ruined my life, but the Daily Mail hates me. I hate the Daily Mail, and I think we'll just leave it at that.
The Daily Mail doesn't hate you.
But you're not. Are you a representative of the Daily Mail?
I am.
I don't think so.
I work on the Daily Mail. I love working there. I'm really proud of it.
Yeah. But do you edit it?
The man at the back there, you, sir.
Yeah. Just to pick up on the lady's point down there, I can totally empathise. One time I had a period of unemployment, right? I have a son who has special needs, who I received DLA and carers for, and when I tried to claim unemployment benefit, they said from that, because of other money coming into the household, we're going to deduct 90%. So therefore, I was never really any better off financially claiming unemployment benefit.
Chuka, very briefly.
But I think it's also, the question is what choices is the government going to make to support? You'd mentioned that your daughter's benefits had been cut. Now, she 8 hours and then it gets cut.
Have any job seekers.
Because in-work benefits to help work pay have actually been cut at the same time that we've seen big tax cuts at the top of the income spectrum, which I think is wrong. And I think also you can do things like, you know, why have we had economic problems? Because of the issues we saw in the financial services sector. That's why we've said, for example, we will have a bank bonus levy and use the money from that to help people pay for their childcare.
Don't use her position as an excuse to give us the next manifesto. We'll have
people want to know what we're going to do.
We'll have plenty. Well, they would like to know what you're going to do, and we'll have plenty of time.
You can invite me back to it.
Let's have a question from James Plumer, please.
Is it the job of Facebook to protect the public from the threat of terrorism?
Is it the job of Facebook? This was the complaint or the requirement that Facebook ought to fess up when it finds people using Facebook, which apparently a third of us use every day, something like that. Norman Baker.
No is a straight answer, and there are 125 million posts on Facebook every day in the UK, and goodness knows how many there are in the world. So it's actually impossible for Facebook to regulate that matter, even if they wanted to. But it's also rather dangerous. I think what Facebook's duty is, or anyone else's duty as an internet company, is to respond to the law of the land. And if the law of the land says that they should undertake and provide certain information, then they should do so quickly and efficiently. But they shouldn't be there as a surrogate for the forces of law and order to do that. And it's also quite dangerous, I think, to ask them to do that, because if we expect them to do that for us in this country, then what do the Chinese government think that should be doing for them, or some other government which is less tolerant than perhaps our one is? So it's a dangerous road to go down. I think what we need to make sure is we've got a sensible, balanced arrangement between security and privacy in this country. That's why we've got a privacy board being set up, as a matter of fact, announced this week. And we ensure that we do, of course, ask the internet companies for information quite properly through a proper process, which can, of course, be challenged, and that's the way to go forward, but not to ask them to do our work for us.
So what is the status of the Intelligence and Security Committee when it says Facebook should do this? Does it have any standing?
Well, no, I mean...
In government?
It's got recommendations.
Is it just a view?
It's got recommendations, the same as any other select committee has.
So you can ignore it?
Well, I mean, it's not for me to ignore it, but we've got an announcement as to what's happening in terms of counter-terrorism. We've got legislation which is coming through this week. That, I think, is a sensible package, as a matter of fact, to balance privacy and security. And I think if that's enacted properly, that gets the balance about right.
Amanda Platell.
Obviously, it's not the job of Facebook to do this, but it does seem rather galling that they can work out within a very short period of time what my shoe size is, what kind of car I want to drive, where I'm likely to go on holiday, sell that to advertisers, and then to start flooding me with ads when they can't do the same thing in a similar way when someone is saying, you know, in their Facebook page or whatever they're doing, saying, actually, I want to kill a soldier, or I want to murder someone, or I want to go and bomb a shopping centre. It seems that it's particularly galling, especially because these guys avoid billions and billions of pounds in taxes. So it kind of, on every level, if I was doing their PR, I would say, come on, get in there, just start helping. It's not your job, but we'd all feel a hell of a lot better about you if you did.
Joe Brown.
Well, my understanding of Facebook, and believe you me, it's sketchy. I'm not on any social media because I get enough abuse from the mail. Thanks.
We love you, Joe. We really love you.
Can I just say
It's
one
tough
glorious
love.
thing that in the Mail once? They had a picture of some beautiful one. I can't remember who it was, who's an actress, and she was the epitome of women that care how they look and dress beautifully. And I was on the other page, looking like I'd just been dragged out of a bush, and underneath me it said, "Joe Brand doesn't care," and I don't. Anyway.
Good on you, Joe, and it just goes to show that you're like 10 million other people who go and buy the paper from Monday to Saturday.
OK. Let's leave the Daily Mail for a moment and come back to the
Yes,
question.
let's leave it forever.
Yeah.
Anyway, as far as I understand, Facebook couldn't actually police the internet in the way that the government wants them to, because they would have to have thousands of people sitting there 24 hours a day.
No, they don't, because the information's triggered. Information about me and anyone who uses it is triggered automatically.
No, I'm talking about kind of terrorist threats. I mean,
Kill us certain of the words
is...
that could have been picked up by Facebook. That was the point.
Yeah.
People who killed Rigby. What do you think?
Well,
you don't have to support the Daily Mail one way or the other, despite having a family connection with it.
My wife works for the Daily Mail,
yes.
So
I'm
very fond of it. But to get back to your point about Facebook, Facebook did identify that one of the people who killed Gunnar Lee Rigby had been engaging in conversations that it classified as terrorist and closed down.
7 times.
They used their analytical tools to identify a threat, and they did not share it with the government of this country. And I think that is wrong. I do not think that internet companies, as Samantha says, which sometimes use the freedom not to be able to pay taxes and believe that they're beyond the reach of law and believe in what Jack Straw called an amoral libertarianism, I do not believe that they can identify someone who's been engaging in terrorist activity and refrain from telling the state concerned. In the same way as some internet companies have at last, under pressure from David Cameron, changed the law, changed the way in which they operate, rather, in order to be able to provide us with information when people are engaging in the vilest child abuse. So it should be the case that they should share this information in order to protect us from terrorism. The people who run these companies are millionaires.
Yeah, Chuka Umunna.
Well, I think the findings of the report were that the intelligence services couldn't have stopped what happened to Lee Rigby, and I think it's worth mentioning, of course, that if it wasn't for his appalling and tragic murder, we wouldn't be talking about this now, and I'm sure everybody wants the family to know that, you know, this is probably a really difficult period for them, and we're with them, right? But I think ultimately it's not about whether Facebook have got a responsibility. I think we've all got a responsibility in your family, in your community, wherever it may be. We've all got to be alert and vigilant. This isn't something that you can kind of deal with, this kind of war that we have with people carrying out these terrible things. It's not an ordinary battle. It's something that we all have to be involved in preventing.
We have time for one more brief question. We've only got 3 or 4 minutes. William Watkinson, please.
Has any political party tried hard enough to engage the white van man in national politics?
Any political party tried hard enough to engage the white van man? Joe Brand.
Well, can I start by asking you, define the white van man?
I was about to ask the same.
Well, the working classes.
Pardon?
The working classes.
The working classes,
yeah.
OK. Because...
How do you see white van?
Sorry?
Are you troubled with the definition?
Am I troubled with the definition? No, but I think you'll find that quite a few women have a slightly different experience of a white van man than men do.
White van people, sorry.
Can you explain?
Yeah, we get abuse shouted at us out of white vans from time to time. Not even from time to time. I've had loads. And I have to say the best antidote to it was once when actually I did have appalling PMT. I'm sorry to say that in mixed company. But some guys in a white van shouted abuse at me, so I went and ripped their windscreen wipers off. And that worked a treat. But I think the problem with stereotypes like the white van man is that the white van, the guy that drives a white van, there are a multitude of different characters with different lives, with different ideals, with different politics. Whichever way you like to look at it. I personally think that Emily Thornberry's tweet was wrong, and that it was snobbish and it was sneering, and that is not something you should be doing if you're a politician, whatever you think privately.
So it's all right for you to say that you've had a lot of abuse from white van men.
Well, what's wrong with that's the truth? Why shouldn't
so she
I?
She could have said that. If she could have said that, would
she didn't say that, though,
no, she
did
didn't
she?
Say that, no.
If she'd said...
She tweeted...
Well, she tweeted a sort of...
A picture.
Yes.
All right.
Pardon?
Chuka,
is it my driving?
No. Chuka Umunna.
Well, I think to...
Be brief, because we have
okay, sure. To generalise about a whole group of people, I mean, you know, that your experience as a black working class person will be different as a white. It will be different according to the generations, according to your gender. And I think at the moment, you know, we're so into all these labels and dividing up our society, middle class, working class, Christian, Muslim. One of the great things about our country, I think, is that actually we focus on generally what we all have in common and how we can meet common challenges together. And that's kind of why we did so well in the Olympics in 2012, and I want us to go back to that spirit as soon as possible.
William Watkinson, did you mean white van man? Do you mean something more than working class?
Well, I meant the working classes in general. I think that our society is so uneven at the moment.
OK.
And the working classes are very underrepresented in the highest jobs
in the UK,
and that's what I was getting at, Joe.
Well, that is true.
And the kind of response I wanted, really, was we're doing this, we're doing that, Chuka, and you haven't really done that.
All right, Amanda Platell.
Well,
you can't do it now.
No, I'm Amanda. You're
sorry.
There was a poll out this week that said that 29% of people in this country thought that the working classes were totally unrepresented by any political party. Well, UKIP was the one that represented them most, but 29% said no one does. But, you know, I sometimes wonder, what about, you know, the whole... We have these things, we talk about hard-working people. Most of the people in this country who work damn hard. And it's the middle classes as well. You know, we always talk about that we whack the rich, we talk about the poor, but there's this huge bunch of people in the middle who never get any notice.
OK. Norman Baker. You have to be brief if you don't mind.
OK. We need to make sure that the government of the day, whichever government it is, speaks for the whole country, not for sections of the country, and there's a feeling that that may be the case now. We also need to have politicians who are not, in my view, professional politicians, who come straight from university, straight into some research job and then straight into becoming an MP at 33. That doesn't help very much at all.
Michael Gove.
I agree with Chuka and Norman. White van man, Mondeo man, pink Cadillac girl. As soon as we divide people into different brackets, we lose the fact that what we should celebrate is our common humanity and our pride in being British. And as for helping everyone in this country, I think what we should do is make sure that we cut taxes for everyone who's in work, make sure that we provide the opportunity of a home that people can call their own later in their lives, and make sure that the next generation can get an education which guarantees a good, well-paying, satisfied job.
That's our time up for this week. Question time is going to be in Doncaster in Yorkshire next week. We're going to be joined by Sajid Javid for the Tories, Yvette Cooper for Labour, Shirley Williams for the Liberal Democrats, and the actor and comedian Omid Jalili. And the week after that, we're going to be in Canterbury, in Kent. So if you want to come either to Doncaster or Canterbury, apply in the usual way. The address there is on the screen, or you can call us 0330 123 9988. If you're listening on 5 Live, as you know, Question Time, Extra Time continues the debate there, but my job is just to thank our panel very much for coming here, and all of you for coming to Romford tonight to take part in this edition of Question Time. Until next Thursday, good night.
Next tonight on BBC One, we join Andrew Neil for the latest parliamentary debate with This Week.
Every mind has got a snapping point, and there's only so far you can push it.